sort of conflict between Donald Trump and the Trump administration and the media. And it was reported, multiple reports on the part of CNN reported 80% of their interceptors, missile interceptors, were depleted during the war in Iran. And Donald Trump, we had the reaction from Pete Hegseth. And today again, we see Donald Trump. It says a new report on CNN, on CNN, it says that Trump grows angry over reports on depleted munitions and believing it weakens him in Iran negotiations. And this is the new report. What is the reality? We had not only on interceptors, we had the reports. Reuters reported that they're short of ATACMS and PRSMs. And looking at the both sides of this argument, what is your understanding of that?
Well, I wrote about it 4 books. The United States Armed Forces do not know what sustainment is. The reason they know what sustainment is because while the Dow Jones grows in Wall Street, the United States have been deindustrializing at an absolutely crushing pace. And it started obviously in mid-1990s and then, of course, developed into the so it's not the country which used to be even during the Vietnam War, which still the United States couldn't handle. And it cannot produce. The lead times are tremendous. The weapon systems themselves are not that good. We can see what Patriot is, for example. It's absolute garbage, essentially, So, and among many other things, yeah, they can produce some kind of the standoff weaponry, such as the, ATACMS, M270. It also can launch HIMARS. They can stick, and again, these are Frankensteins, essentially. You can stick there some, a GBU, into some kind of the rocket, and here PRSM, whatever. So it's all about the essentially GPS and somehow targeting it into something, and that's it. So production capability is not there. It hasn't been there for a long time. And now, I mean, it doesn't matter what Trump thinks. He is absolutely detached from the reality. And even if he knows the reality, which is, of course, doubtful, the problem is it's all perception management. Reality is Iranians are good mathematicians. They produced Al-Khwarizmi gave us actually algebra for those people who do not understand. So, and he was Persian, if they think that people cannot count, I have a bridge to sell them. So the only thing they are capable of, including Pentagon and White House, Washington D.C. in general, the swamp of these creatures, they really do not understand what war is. They know only perception. They only pretend that they still can negotiate, not understanding they have been utterly humiliated militarily, and so. Whatever Trump thinks, who cares? He's not taken seriously. United States is not taken seriously anymore. This is the news which none of them has courage to face, and they don't want to look in the mirror. So they will continue to live in this la-la fantasy land, that we somehow weakened, as if Iranians don't know how many of what give and take, obviously, is left. And there is a crisis. It's a military crisis. It is precipitated by also the situation of the special military operation. And what you observe now is a full-blown panic and hysteria in media, including. And they're going to eat each other. Let them. I mean, they are both worthless, actually. So Trump doesn't know how to run the country. His administration doesn't know. U.S. Congress is a Knesset. They really run all things only in favor of Israel. They do not understand how to provide the industrial development of the country. It's absolutely out of their, actually capability, academically, experience-wise, and what have you. So here we are. That's the disintegration, essentially, of the political system, which is utterly corrupt. And those people who advise Trump, like Hegseth, who is Hegseth? He has been in Afghanistan. Wow. He saw that people shooting from the AK-47s. Wow. Impressed me. The guy, he has no military background. He is a media personality. So this is the type of the, sadly, the officer corps, much of it in the U.S. Army, people with no real serious military background, they went through those, ROTCs and things like that. They're all those big star generals. They are political generals. They make their careers out of the, licking somebody's boots and, kissing ass. And so, yeah, that's the kind of combination of all those factors coming together. And then suddenly they thought that they have this obsessive idea, due to being amateurs and incompetent, that the shock and awe. Yeah, Iran, 93 million population. They have this bunch of the cretins, from the Iranian dissidents who told them, like Chalabi told them about Iraq. Oh, yeah, you're going to be met with the open arms. Well, didn't work out this way. And then suddenly, what do you have? United States Army never could sustain operations realistically, because it doesn't have really, especially in the modern times, to provide, well, the logistics, the supplies, everything. And as a result, that's what it is. Simple as that. They blew away all those stocks, not large to start with anyway, in Ukraine. And now they're faced with this. Iran basically nailed the final nail into the coffin of the American empire. And so it's like, you cannot do something if you don't have the ability to do it, So it's just so simple. I want to fly in the air like Superman, but I don't have the capability. I'm not Superman. I can pretend. I can go and put the, what's the suit of the Superman or costume of Superman on some cosplay convention, but it doesn't make me a Superman. And this is exactly what happened to the United States.
Andrei, some politicians in the United States who are basically criticizing Donald Trump because he's not accepting the Ukrainian policy, because they're talking about Ukraine is producing drones. We may learn from them. They're going to help us to produce drones to go against Iran. The same. What is that capacity, in your opinion? What are they talking about? Do they know what is that?
Listen, first, you have to understand that average legislator in the United States is dumb. They are utterly incompetent people. Most of them have degrees in law. And even those who like Tom Cotton, he was in, Afghanistan. He is a hero. He won't understand the first thing about modern warfare. Evidently, even Joint Chiefs of Staff have issues, grasping it. They see this popular thing, which is about drones, which of course drones are an important part of the warfare. So the only idea which average American congressman or senator can have in his mind is obviously how to commit a war crime. So what is the war crime? Let's build some drones and let's attack civilians. This is the only thing they are good at. And that's the whole idea. But there is nothing to learn about drones. Drone itself, that's what many people do not understand. Even the most sophisticated drones, you stick to it, bunch of the good optronic systems like, infrared and regular optics, and you get them some kind of, you can stick, depending on the design of the system, something else, and you can make it more or less maneuverable and longer and shorter range. That's it. I mean, it's the tactics, how you have to use it, and obviously how it applies to operationally. But in order for you to do this, Ukraine cannot produce anything sophisticated. Most of it is removed into Europe, to Europe, and in countries like Germany, Italy is very important. All those shops, basically, they make those larger drones and supply it to Ukraine, including, for example, those are basically long-range drones, UAVs, which such as Bayraktar, which is still provided by Turkey, and Poland makes those. And so, realistically, Ukraine is totally dependent on that, and the only experience they have is how to do this so-called air-to-air combat with the drones, It's an important thing, make no mistake, it's an important skill, but technologically, it's not as, it's operational issue of how you use it operationally, not tactically. Tactically, it's understandable. You have the good operators, they are trained and, they become really masters of that. But reality is, again, as I already stated, this is the last straw they grasp at, because United States, yesterday in my video, I produced some numbers which United States provided for Ukraine in terms of all kinds of weapons. So they basically now sitting at the bottom of the barrel with their only first line, basically storage of ammo and whatever other means of the weapon systems, because they cannot provide them anymore to Ukraine. Otherwise, they will be depleting the actual, you can call it defense or war fighting capability of the frontline units in the United States Army and armed forces. So as a result, drones. Okay, what's that? Oh yeah, so you have to understand, they are panicking so badly that if you read headlines in the last for the last week or even this week, it's it's bizarre. In accordance to those headlines, Russians are losing war and actually lost territory. So, while obviously nothing like this happened, and actually it's quite opposite. But that's what is happening. And for primitive mind, who never served a day in the armed forces, who doesn't have any degree in weapon systems integration or has no, the officer rank, for them to, what's left? Drones. Okay, yeah, let's launch those drones and kill as many Russians as possible. That's the only thing they have. And this is because, I'm writing my 5th book, which should be out hopefully by the start of the next year. It's an obsolete force. It's obsolete operational and strategic concepts. They don't know how to fight war. And as the result, as I already stated, they're grasping at this, drones, okay? And they, of course, the only thing the United States is good at is PR, propaganda. That's the only thing. And as a result, we have this actually explosive, mix, if you wish, of propaganda, desperation, lying, what have you. And obviously it's not the case. It's not the actually environment in which you can gain the understanding of the situation. And then there is another fundamental thing, which I am on record for many years. If you have a degree in political science, you will not be able to grasp anything. You have to have, because this is 2026. The warfare is extremely complex. It's highest tactical, operational levels are so complex that you have to have real serious engineering, military engineering, not engineering in an American sense, like U.S. Corps of Engineers, which are basically construction company in the large sense with the epaulets. No, I'm talking about systems integration, weapon systems designs, things of this nature, targeting and recon and things of this nature. If you don't have it, you will not understand it for the most part. People will be still grasping at those. Oh, drones. Fine, drones are important. Make no mistake. But that's pretty much it. You will not be able to explain to them how targeting is done, how the firing solutions are developed, why they're missing all the time. They cannot, what is the selectivity of the, basically homing devices and things of this nature. It has to be that type of discussion. None of them, for example, in US Congress, can hold this discussion, and they will not understand how the technological paradigm actually translates itself into the operational strategic matters. That is why they miscalculate constantly. Simple as that.
I think the point, Andrei, with drones is that it seems that they don't understand that you're not going to win a war with by using drones attacking
No.
this target and that target. It's all about a strategy, as you mentioned, a grand strategy for the war, which it seems that the grand strategy on the part of the United States, in my opinion, with what's going on against Russia and Iran and the continuation of the war, is they want to continue this war. They don't know what is the objective, what would be the end, what would be the final point for them. It's just the continuation of the war, nothing else coming out of the Washington. What is your understanding of that?
Well, that's the whole point which I'm making. My first book, if you remember, it's called Losing Military Supremacy, which never was there to start with, and it's the myopia of strategic planning. There's no strategic planning. Take any American general, he wouldn't understand the first thing about combined arms operations. So take Donahue, take Cavoli, which used to be, take Aguta, take whatever. I'm not talking about Hodgeses and Kellogg's who parade themselves as clowns, in the media sphere. They won't understand what war is. They just don't teach that in the U.S. military academies. They teach them, well, if you look attentively at the core, or as some people say, it's yardstick. It's what? Yeah, it's Iraq. That's the only thing, that's the only thing they know. It's Al Bundy, 4 touchdowns in Married with Children, who still, remembers how he played the high school football and, did basically did 4 touchdowns in those games. Wow, impressed me. So, and they do not have the measure of the scales. They don't understand what it is. And they've been called now, again, in many respects, special military operation and Iran, they are connected because essentially they flow organically from one catastrophic defeat, which they were at some point of time they have been able to hide it. Now it's in the open, as I already stated, and I warned about it for many years. The moment the United States gets out of from the back, behind the back of its proxies, it's done. It's incapable of fighting real serious war. And now what do you do? Oh yeah, how many times was Iran already defeated? Some people say 40. I don't know how many times Trump, and yes, now Russia is absolutely defeated. Yeah, in accordance to. That's them. They don't have honor. They don't have integrity. They don't have self-respect. And that is why they constantly continue those wars, completely lost, confused, not understanding what is going on. Because, yeah, you should have studied better. You should have learned. They don't. They are incapable of learning. U.S. military is incapable of learning. And so the only thing they project, including on the level of the legislators and all those people who make decisions, and the power of the purse sits with the U.S. Congress, that is the money, budget, they're basically paying for all those procurement and other appropriations, if you wish. So you say, yeah, let's build, air power, because, the 8th Air Force single-handedly won the World War II. Those Ruskies. Yeah, we bombed those, the Nazis into oblivion, of course, which is not, it has no relation to reality. Nothing to say, not to degrade in any way heroism and dedication of the, American servicemen who fought in the World War II. But that's what they think about it. Many of them, they still think that you can win the war by the air power alone. Because obviously they never studied military history properly. It's all confabulated and fairy tales. And when you have this, and you have the officer corps, which comes to, serve with this, you have this environment until they really face real serious situation. And we're talking about that if United States gets into the ground war with Iran, Vietnam will be easy stroll in the park compared to this. United States Army cannot take serious casualties, and that is why they're constantly covering it up. It's just the whole blob, basically, of this, how to say it, filled with corruption through and through. And result is, here it is. United States was lucky enough that Russians, for example, Soviets, knew what war was, and they didn't repeat of that because obviously they lost so much. United States didn't, but at least it had at that time common sense and experienced people like obviously Eisenhower, and people of his scale who understood that we cannot go and do the horrible thing again. This generation is completely gone. As I already stated, average American legislator is a bellicose, warmongering coward, and so they think that they know war. They don't. And as the result, we have to tread very carefully with the United States because it's essentially is becoming the the psychiatric ward patient with the grenade. So it has to be handled carefully. But other than that, I mean, it's just incompetent. Simple as that. We can say now it's incompetent, and U.S. Armed forces are obsolete. They are 1990s force, designed to fight very cautiously, selecting the enemies it fights. Either buying out outright, such as Venezuelans, who are in the wholesale of their presidents, or Iraq, or some weak Arab state which could be corrupted and bribed into the utter submission, which they gladly do. Once they face a real enemy, they collapse.
We had a report on CNN that Bradley Cooper, the head of CENTCOM, is asking his commanders to come out with, and forces to come out with innovative ideas to fight Iran.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that they're still thinking that there has to be some sort of military solution for what's going on, Andrei. The perception on the part of the CENTCOM.
Terrorism, yeah, killing civilians. That's it. That's the only thing they can do. Again, Pentagon is incompetent, and they are. There's a lot of talk about it, but again, many people didn't know that I speak about it. Or sometimes you cannot explain to some American officer the abyss which separates him, for example, from, let's say, Russian serious level officer. It's abyss, academic, experience-wise, culturally, socially, what have you, intellectually. And so what are innovative ideas? Innovative ideas is to kill civilians. That's what the United States does. That's why they actually do the same thing with Russian civilians in special military operations against Russian territories. And Maria Zakharova essentially explained also to Macron, for example. Yeah, he's also a terrorist, essentially. That's who he is. And that's it. They have no other options. The only option they have is nuclear. But that will be the end of the United States as the normal state, and it will become pariah state. It might still scare such vassals and people without honor like Japanese, who celebrated so today is the 6th, Hiroshima and then Nagasaki later, and they still do not mention who actually bombed it. Eventually, it will be rewritten in such a way that it was Soviet Union which dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, while the United States defeated Hitler around Stalingrad. I'm not exaggerating too much. It almost seems like that's where it is going. We're looking at the total insanity of the political system and economic and military, which ceased to function completely. And when Brad Cooper, he was also the guy who stated that we have to stop immediately to bomb Hormuz Strait, because the United States is running. Eventually, it's going to run out of bombs. Simple as that. What do you have? Then you will fly what? The aircraft which would carry no ammunition. And so that's how collapse looks like. And many people still will. Again, I followed obviously special military operation, and I see that the hysteria and the level of lying they have literally. Legislatures coming out and said, "Oh yeah, Ukraine turned the tables. They took territories," and like, really? Last time I checked, it was the other way around. But I mean, yeah, that's who they are. They do not know. They don't know how to deal with substance, or how to govern, or how to plan combined arms operations, or how to conduct the sustainment operations, and how to tie them into the. They just don't. The majority of them are humanities brainwashed people with lawyers, political scientists, not have you. You have the generals and admirals who had the majoring in literature, for crying out loud. I'm not kidding you. You can look it up. How can you become a flag officer when you have degree in literature? Because you've been run through a 4-year program somewhere, it's... You cannot teach the person with a degree in sociology. You cannot teach them the system integration. You can't. You cannot explain to them how it translates into the tactical and operational issues, because they don't have toolkit. And you have to teach them for many, many years, and you have to train them in the appropriate environment. United States doesn't have it.